copy of Gander and more freaking lunch.
Welcome to Mattowarrior's Metal Madness.
Welcome to Mattowarrior's Metal Madness. It's Mattowarrior here doing the 26th episode of this podcast. So a lot has happened in the last few weeks. Unfortunately, some sad news in the metal and rock world, and that's what my focus on. Well, I hate to do two of these types of episodes in a row. It kind of it's very unfortunate that I really don't want to do this kind of thing twice in a row, but it's gonna, I mean, the times that we're living in with regards to a lot of these classic artists, unfortunately does call for this type of thing once in a while. Hopefully it'll stop. So, but first, I think we're going to go over the news here. So the news and the rest of the metal rock world anyways. News. All right, so go to Blabbermouth here, the old fogey metal news site. Just kidding. John 5 says Ace Frehley was so excited that Trump said his name and said it correctly while announcing his Kennedy Center honor. That's the first headline. So kind of patronizing towards Trump, but I think that's kind of funny, actually. That's actually good to do that sometimes. I'm just kind of half joking there. Yeah, so I guess there was a Kennedy Center honor that they did. Speaking of talking about Ace Frehley, this is what this episode's going to be about, actually, in KISS. So just a spoiler alert. Anyways, second one, Watch Jeff Tate performs entire Operation Mindcrime album. Okay. You know, I won't talk about that in this episode. See Wasp play to pre-recorded tracks during a European tour. I added that as an aside, but no, that's what I heard that he does. I didn't see him live, which I should, or Wasp live. It's basically Blackie Lawless band, but nevertheless, I wanted to go see that. Watch Biohazard. Wow, they have a new album out. Watch Biohazard performs at New York City record store to celebrate Divided We Fall album release. Now, Biohazard is an interesting band to talk about because they kind of presaged a lot of the later 90s, 2000s trends like nu metal and rap metal and stuff in some ways. So I kind of have some respect for them, actually, for that reason. So Megadeth's Dirk Verburen shares official drum playthrough video for Tipping Point. So I could have done a whole episode about the new Megadeth song and stuff, but I don't know. Now, one of the things that it doesn't bother me, but it's kind of like Metallica and Megadeth. It's like, well, you get one band that has very metal, very modern metal with sort of a edge of contemporary influences, but like not in a cheesy, like mainstream way with Megadeth, and you have Metallica that has this kind of like, I don't know, I don't even like to compare the two, but like sometimes Metallica seems to have the songs and Megadeth has like the icing on the cake, and it's like you're missing one element from each band. They used to be with bands, by the way, but so anyways, I'm not a big fan of modern Megadeth, just for the reason that just like Metallica, it seems kind of forced in a way. I know I'm going to be losing some people from this comment. And if I'd rather see one band live, it would be neither one, but at least you could afford a Megadeth ticket nowadays. You know, I've seen Megadeth like 3 times, so I've only seen Metallica once, and that was way a long time ago. But I'd rather see Megadeth live, just like at this juncture, just because I wish they would play more classics. But like just for my wallet, I'd see Megadeth live. Chad Gray on Mudvayne's new music. We did kind of exactly what people are expecting. Okay. I'm not a big fan of Mudvayne. Limp Bizkit bassist and co-founder Sam Rivers dead at 48. Wow, that's young. Would Phil Rudd play with AC/DC again? I would do it for the fans, he says. Okay. Slipknot files lawsuit to assume control of slipknot.com domain from anonymous squatter. That's a headline for you. I don't even know. I'm not too concerned with that. Ted Nugent at 76 says he can still hit the high notes in some of his classic songs. The music is so inspiring. Well, that's cool. I mean, I don't know. Whatever. John, speaking of, anyways, Jonathan Cain confirms he will leave Journey after a 2-year tour. This is going to be it for me. That's interesting. Maybe we'll get Greg Raleigh back. That would be kind of cool. Just a little comment. I know Greg Raleigh is ancient as well, but it would be kind of cool to see that. Watch Tesla launches fall 2025 Las Vegas residency. That's where we're at in the modern rock world, is Las Vegas residencies. My God, I never thought the day would come. That's a sign of getting old there. Scorpion's Claws Main or Claws Mine or whatever. On When to Change, the song is still very relevant, especially with the young audience. Well, yeah, I don't know. Dave Ellefson, Ace Frehley passing on is on the level Eddie Van Halen passing. He was that influential. Yes, he was. Definitely. 100% true. Watch Sebastian Bach pays tribute to Ace Frehley with cover of Kiss's Shock Me during a Connecticut concert. Well, I'm not going to watch because copyright too. Halloween pulls out rarities, new songs for 40 years anniversary tour. Kickoff in Luxembourg. I might actually have to go this time to see Halloween because I'm not a big fan of the Darius era Halloween, just to be honest. Like, I love Time of the Oath, and I do like what was the other album I really like? Gambling with the Devil. But like, I do not like some of the albums as much, obviously, as, and this is going to be very controversial. I'm really kind of putting myself in a corner today. I really like Chameleon a lot, and that's a really weird thing to say to a lot of people, but nevertheless, I like it. Watch Kerry King play Slayer, Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden classics in Osaka with his solo band. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Saliva, I'm not even going to cover that. Sorry. Saliva. There's some saliva for you. There's corn in my poop and saliva in my mouth. That's all I got to say. And Limp Biscuits in my refrigerator. Oh, God. Sweden's Bullet. This is a band, actually, I want to get more. I want to check out more. Sweden's Bullet announced his first album in 7 years, Kickstarter. That name, I don't know. You just hear me make snarky comments about fellow musicians for half an hour in this podcast for the first part of it. Serenia releases music video for new single Nightside Den. Okay. I don't know. I'm not even going to cover Shinedown. I don't talk about that. We don't talk about that kind of stuff here in this household, you know, as the kids like to say. We don't talk about that. Am I recording? Shit. I don't think I'm recording. Fuck. Oh, fuck. Am I? Oh yeah, I'm recording. Okay. I couldn't find the track. Duh. Nikki Sixx explains Motley Crue's lighter touring schedule. Says he wants to spend more time with his family. Yeah, whatever. Tobias Forge on the song called Phone Ban during Ghost concerts. I believe that more bands will start doing this. Well, Iron Maiden is already starting to do it at some European shows. Do I believe in it? You know what it is? I'm going to say what it is. So, yeah, they don't like phones. People don't like phones. But there's always a capitalist person behind these trends, because there's some company making money off of these, like, things that these enclosures or things that you put your phone in during the concert. So they probably, like, had some money given to them, and they're like, we're gonna free phones or free concerts from phones. And you know, it's just like all this other stuff. Not to be political, but that's pretty much what it is in a way. So people making money from these things you put your phone in, or that big whatever, like big pharma, big tech. You know, I don't even know what to call it. I'll have to think of a name for that. But anyways, that's what it is. Or that's what's going to be for sure. And there's not going to be competition because we don't have competition now. There'll be just one company that monopolizes it, and they'll be bought out by Ticketmaster in 2 years, or whatever, or whoever, or Live Nation or whatever. They'll own this company that does the phone band enclosures that you put. Because so for people don't know what I'm talking about, these bands that have these phone bands that have the phone bands. They have these like things you put your cell phone in, and it like locks until you leave the venue, like about to leave the venue. It's a bunch of bureaucracy. I don't want more bureaucracy at shows. Just fucking don't ban phones. Just, what you can do is just shame the audience. Put your phone down, you dweeb, and then point. Just do that, and maybe make more tits, less phones at concerts. I miss tits. Anyways, I know that's not very politically correct, but whatever. The most tits, but ironically, the most tits I ever saw at a concert was Pantera, but that was for other reasons. That was pretty cringe, the audience at least. Metallica's Lars Ulrich names Deep Purple song that left a mark on him when he first heard it as a kid. And he wouldn't be talking about that 25 years ago. He'd be talking about the Oasis song that left the mark on him, because metal wasn't cool during that time, or at least 30 years ago, I should say. Sorry, I just had to like bash Lars Ulrich. Matt Sorum pays tribute to Ace Frehley. He was a real deal in every sense of the word. I think he played in some super thing with them. What else is there? Trivium, Typo Negative. Oh, there's a live album. That's kind of cool. Sabaton, Udo, Saliva again. 9 Inch Nails cover, Jeff Tate. Song inspired a lot by his former band. What song is that? Oh, I have to look this up. This is weird. Opeth pays tribute. There's a lot of Ace Frehley stuff. Well, that's what the episode will be about today. So, oh wow. Oh, I think they knew each other. Wasp, Blackie Lawless on Ace Frehley's death. My heart is so heavy I could barely find words. Because Alice Cooper. Wow, there's a lot. Okay, now I'll go into that in the segment. Let's see. So let's see this Jeff Tate thing. What the hell is he talking about? And that'll jumpstart the whole episode, like non-news segment. Pays tribute to Ace Frehley. Let's see. Queen of the Reich. Why is Queen of the Reich inspired by Kiss? I don't understand. It's cool that he did Queen of the Reich, though. I don't really want to hear it because I don't know if he's gonna. I don't know. That's not really inspired by Kiss. It's more like Iron Maiden and shit. Judas Priest. That's weird. I don't know what he means. I don't know. Anyways, I'm done with the news segment now. So let's talk about Kiss. Let's talk about Ace Frehley. Ace Frehley died the other day at 74. Complications from a fall that he had in his home studio, which is pretty horrible to think about. It's like if I fell on a guitar or something over here in my cluttered apartment or something. I'm sorry to laugh, but it's like impaled myself on one of my Flying V or something. Like that would be awful. So it's just a weird accident and stuff. But I guess he had bleeding in the brain. So let's just begin. I'm going to talk about. I'm hoping that I didn't talk about. I don't think I talked about this in an episode yet, but if I did, whatever. I do that with my videos too. So I'm going to talk about when I got into Kiss and what the impact was, and just go into the whole history. So growing up, I saw Kiss videos on MTV and stuff, and I was like, yeah, they're okay, But I had this brother-in-law, and he was into Kiss, and he had the first Kiss album, and he had I think he had Dressed to Kill as well. So I think I heard the first Kiss album as the debut, and I was like, this is catchy stuff, I kind of like this. And there was all the hype and stuff about them. And there was there was during the time when there was murmurings of a reunion happening. It was just in the prenatal stages of a reunion. So I bought Alive, and I started listening to it, and I was like, wow, this is awesome stuff, and I love the guitar playing and stuff and the songs. I bought Kiss, the first album, and I think that was it for a while, and then later I bought Kiss Alive 2 on vinyl as well, which I think I still own both of them. And they're probably somewhat vintage. I think one of them is, or there's something up on my wall from one of them. There's this little flyer thing that is from that. And then, I got into those three a lot at the time. And but the thing is that when I read about the reunion, I was like, there was an interview with Gene Simmons right before that really got me really grossed out by Kiss. And this is when I was more of a prude, and I was to be honest, I was kind of a Christian too. Like, I was like, sex without marriage is bad, blah, 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 right? So he talked about his groupies and stuff, and I was like grossed out by it. I was sketched out by it. And I just described myself as a prude back then. That's just the way it was, because I was just so like naive about stuff like that. In my own words, I'm not saying anybody else's if they don't like believe in groupies or something. It's just, so the whole thing was like, I got sketched out by this interview, and he talked about also like how he loves money and stuff, which I think is partly, I'm going to get into this. So, I think it's partly an act that he's only in it for the money. I don't believe that. Or money and chicks or whatever. I think he is in it for that, but he also likes fucking music. Obviously, it's so stupid to say, just like, oh, I'm only in it for the money. It's like, why would you be in something that you hate for the money, right? Unless it's like your job, like your day job or something. Like, why would you go to all this like extent if you just liked money? Like, that's stupid. That's just ridiculous. It's totally false. Now I do think he likes money, and I do think he's in it for the money in part, but I don't think that's the only reason. So that's just a little bit of a rant on that. So at the time, I just kind of was like so into authenticity too with music, and it was a grunge era, like the post-grunge era, like the alternative era, and it was just like I was trying to search for meaning in the music and stuff, and I was like, Kiss is just this played out band, and I heard about the reunion shows and they were playing. I was just like, I just kind of got didn't want to listen to Kiss. I just wanted to avoid them. It was kind of almost like a political thing for me at the time. And then, I got out of metal for a little bit. And then when I got back into metal, and I've talked about this in the past, it was like full on that time. Like, I was like, yeah, before it was like, there was certain things I wouldn't touch, certain bands or certain types of styles of metal I wouldn't touch, full on black metal, full on all the death metal and stuff, by that time. So then I wasn't, exploring Kiss at all, but what happened was I picked up Destroyer on tape at the time, and I started listening to a lot, but I wasn't like, and I would listen to Alive 1 or 2 again. I wasn't like super like into Kiss yet again, but like, so this is the thing, like in sophomore year of high school, or wasn't sophomore year, or was it junior year? I was actually Gene Simmons for Halloween too. So like I was, and being, I'll get into that later. Anyways, this is a whole timeline of this Kiss thing that I'm trying to go through with this. So the whole impetus, like getting back into Kiss, I wasn't like fully back on board, but I was like, yeah, this is a really good album. So I listened to that a lot. And I used to have this job where I would take the bus and I listened to Kiss Destroyer and Kansas's Left Overture, and then Ed Guy's Theater Salvation on tape. Like, that was what I listened to on the way. And then Wasp's first album some of the time too. And I'm not going to go into that story about 9/11 and Wasp, which was a really weird story to talk about. But anyways, so anyways, I took the bus to this job, And I was into Kiss. I was still into Kiss. I just was like not. I just didn't care about it that much. I was just like, yeah, I'll listen to a Kiss album once in a while. But I listened to it actually for a while. I listened to Destroyer a lot. So that was kind of the in between phase. But then around 2013, 2014, I got curious about, because people started talking about music from the Elder, and I was like in this phase where I was listening to bands' worst albums, the most hated albums of a band. I was like obsessed with like this concept, like, oh, what does Cold Lake sound like? Like, I never heard it all the way through, or, you know, albums like that. So I started to like listen to albums that people hated, or the bands themselves hated, or people hated. And one of them was music from the Elder, and I had never heard it before. So I was like, and it caused a snap in me where I was like, man, this album is awesome. I don't know why that people hate it. I don't know why the band hated it. So I just started really listening to that all the time. And then what happened was I just started getting into all the other albums that Kiss did. Rock and Roll Over, Hotter Than Hell, Dressed to Kill. I don't like as much Dressed to Kill. Like, the production is just so... I mean, it was almost a course correction to do a live with a lot of the Dressed to Kill songs, because it just the production is horrible. In fact, I think Dressed to Kill's production is worse than Hotter Than Hell's, even though people always say Hotter Than Hell, the album is massively badly produced. But like, I think the production gives it a raw vibe that Dressed to Kill is like, it's too raw in some ways and stripped down, but it's also too polished in another way. It's just like the worst of both worlds. So anyways, I listened to that, and then I listened to some of their 80s stuff I got into, and it just I was like a full-on Kiss fanatic in like 2013, 2014. Like, I got super into them. I bought some Kiss shirts. I was like, I don't give a shit anymore. I'll listen to Kiss. Gene Simmons is a douchebag, blah blah blah, whatever. You know, I just didn't care anymore about that. So it was a full-on Kiss renaissance. But like, even like my whole Return to Metal thing was like full on that time, right? So that was what happened, and I got another poster. It's hanging up on my wall, Love Gun, right now. I got like this. I even got into Dynasty, which surprised me. I don't like Unmasked that much, but Dynasty I do think is a pretty strong album for being a disco album. But I got into that, and I got into Creatures of the Night, and my favorite is like Elder and Alive 2 are still my favorite two albums by Kiss. And I know that sounds weird, but I mean, Alive 2 is sort of a live album, sort of a studio album, literally and figuratively too, because it has a studio side. So I got really into Ace Frehley as well, and I wasn't as much into his solo career. I love his first solo album, of course. But some of his solo career I didn't really like as much. I don't like any of their solo careers all that much. Paul Stanley is my favorite member, quote unquote, but I really like all of them, but I think Paul Stanley had the songs that I related to the most, is like, as far as like his solo album too, 78 solo album, which I think his is I honestly think Paul Stanley's is my favorite because I listen to it the most. And then Ace Frehley is second, and then strangely enough, I think Peter Criss's is third, because at least it's honest. And then Gene Simmons is just, some of those songs are so cringe, like Living in Sin at the Holiday Inn. Some of those songs are just dumb. I think his Beatles like rip-off songs were great, and I think like a couple of the other songs like Radioactive were cool, but I think the rest of the album just has I'm talking about the 78 solo albums they did, you know, that they decided to do this huge marketing event and stuff in September. I think it was September of 78. So they did those albums, and I thought that was a horrible or I thought the Gene Simmons was the weakest. It just had the cheesiest, dumbest songs on it, even if it had some bangers on it too. But like, I think the Peter Criss's at least was like this honest R&B, attempted like R&B, like appropriation, or whatever you want to call it, you know. And I like Paul Stanley's. I thought just some of those songs could have been just the best Kiss songs ever, you know. Tonight You Belong to Me just was, to me, that's better than anything off the Ace album. But I think the Ace album it might be the strongest consistently. That's what I will admit. So it was kind of experimental. It had some cool stuff on it. So I thought it was really cool. So Ace became like to me in the later years, he was kind of the rebel. He was kind of like, this guy is the most musically inclined, whereas the Peter and Ace were like they were the musical guys. Like they actually cared about the music and the rock and roll lifestyle, stuff like that, like reading their books and stuff. I read all their books except for Gene Simmons because I just didn't care about his. I already, there's enough interviews with Gene Simmons. You kind of know what he's about, but you read the books by the Peter Criss one is the best one, by the way, to read. That one is, I don't know how true it is, but it's the best autobiography, quote unquote, to read by the members. It's insane. And I also recommend actually Kiss and Sell is a good book about the business side of Kiss. Just reading all the stuff together, you're like, wow, this is some crazy stuff. So anyways, the Ace became like the rebel, figuratively the rebel of the band. Like the guy's like, I care about the rock and roll, he's like the Keith Richards, his songwriting isn't as prominent in the band as Paul and Gene's, but he's kind of third place, and Peter is like a little bit behind Ace, of course, or he's behind, not a little bit behind Ace, but he's behind Ace. So the chemistry of that band was what made them sound the way they sounded, because you notice even if you listen to Eric Singer and Ace, live footage is different, or of course what they call the scab Kiss, which is Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer, or Eric Carr and Ace. And then there is an Eric Singer Ace era too, which is very short lived, but that was kind of cool too. So when you had Eric Singer or Carr with Ace and the band, it was a very different dynamic than with Peter. I think Peter did actually kind of, his playing did become kind of a lot looser and a lot more like, I'm going to use, I guess you could use the word sloppy with the reunion and stuff. And I think he had some injuries and some accidents, and he just was I don't know what happened to Peter Criss's playing, honestly. It was very different later, on the Dynasty tour forward, pretty much. So when Paul Stanley bashes his early playing, that's where I get defensive. I'm like, Peter Criss was fine. He just had a unique style, a kind of a jazzy style. It's like people that attack Lars Ulrich. Let's say people attacked Lars Ulrich on Master of Puppets, and like incorporated that into like the modern like criticisms of Lars Ulrich. And I would think that was just totally disingenuous. So when he bashed Peter Criss and we wanted a John Bonham, like. He's not John Bonham. He's almost like a Mitch Mitchell or something. Very different kind of drumming. So I love his drumming on the early Kiss. It made them unique. So as far as like when you hear the post reunion Kiss with Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer, it's a very different dynamics of the sound. It's very subtle, but you kind of hear it like. The way that Tommy Thayer plays the Ace stuff is just too perfect. It's too slick. It's too overproduced. It sounds like someone trying to imitate Ace's playing and just kind of falling flat in their face, to be quite honest. So he did become kind of the hero in the interviews and stuff when he's talking about his former band. And Ace Frehley, I mean. So when you look at that, you kind of get the impression that he's... just kind of the rock and roll force of the band. Same with Peter Criss, but Peter Criss was so bitter compared to Ace. Even Ace was bitter about all the times he was fired or quit Kiss or whatever you want to believe. But at the same time, he had the happy-go-lucky attitude in general that made him a little more charismatic than Peter Criss was. I'm talking about like some of the Eddie Trunk interviews too. Like you listen to both of them, and they're just like. Ace just seemed like more of a happy-go-lucky guy in comparison. He just had a lot of problems. So the what was really interesting is a few years ago that Gene Simmons vault thing happened, and you saw that like that came out and that was, you know, limited edition or whatever, and had all this unreleased demos from Gene Simmons for Kiss and for his solo stuff and for other projects, because he did write songs for other bands like Wendy Williams and stuff, Plasmatics. So this came out, and they did these weird, like, he brought Ace Frehley out for some of these like Vault appearances or whatever, like to promote the Vault thing. And I think it would be like, I think it was like these limited like intimate events that if you bought a certain tier of the Vault, you'd get this appearance by Gene and Ace. And I can't remember exactly the details. I'd have to look it up. But there were leaked performances on YouTube of these performances, or leaked videos of these performances, I should say. And I watched a couple of them, and I'm like, this is what's missing. This interplay between Gene and Ace. And when you watch Kiss post reunion with Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer, it's missing that greasy dynamic. It's like almost called like a greasy kind of like interplay, like this. It's, you could call it slop, you can call it looseness, you can call it vibe. It had this vibe like that. That was what Kiss, the classic Kiss, was about. And you heard it even with those two playing songs. It was crazy. I was just like, okay, now I understand this interplay that they had. This unique, all musicians have an interplay together, but this interplay, that's what made them sound the way they did. And it was crazy. I was like, wow. It was a kind of a revelation. So, and I was always critical of like Tommy Thayer and Peter Criss and Eric Singer adopting those personas, because it was just like, it was false. They don't play the same way. They don't sound the same. So they try to like appropriate this imagery and the vibe and the characters that those guys chose and the vibes that they chose, and even the song, the space theme, you know, with Ace Frehley that Tommy Thayer tried to copy or was contracted to copy or whatever. And same with Tommy Thayer and Peter Criss, or Eric Singer and Peter Criss. Now, Eric Singer does have a unique style. If you listen to him in other bands and stuff, he is a great drummer. In fact, I would have to say like Carnival of Souls by Kiss is, as much as I hated a lot of the bands doing like grunge albums and stuff, I actually really like a lot of that album. So, and in no small part it's because of Eric Singer's drumming, because he just sounds cool, you know. So I thought that album was underrated in a certain way. But the reunion happened, and then they obviously played their farewell tour in 2000, and then obviously they got those guys on board. Peter Criss came back for a short period of time, which is really strange to me, like how they would actually justify that. But then, you know, he left or was fired or whatever. So it's a really interesting history if you look at those two. But Ace Frehley, so I kind of got really burnt out on seeing these live performances where either Paul Stanley, these more later live performances where Paul Stanley sounded just terrible live, or was using pre-recorded tracks, alleged. Of course, there's a lot of evidence for that already. So I was like, I'm not going to see Kiss live, but I got to see something that is an equivalent of Kiss at least one time in my lifetime, and before they break up or whatever, retire. So Ace Frehley had the Space Invader tour, and I was like, I'm gonna go see that. And I was determined, and I was on Facebook and stuff, like nobody wanted to go, so I just kept posting incessantly, please someone go to me with this. And I used to be able to go to concerts with many people. Thankfully, those days are actually seemingly getting better again with seeing concerts and stuff, like with people and stuff, because I went to Milwaukee Metal Fest last year, but I had an injury, so I couldn't go this year. But unfortunately, but I went to Milwaukee Metal Fest with some people, and I'm going to see Blind Guardian in December, and with someone, and so it's gotten better. But like back in during that tour, it was kind of rough with finding people to go to certain concerts with. I could go with certain people, but nobody wanted to go to the Space Invader tour, Ace Frehley. But I finally found someone who was a friend of a friend that wanted to go, so I went with him. We saw Ace Frehley live, which was awesome. Honestly, it was great. And it was great seeing the songs with the original tuning. It was great seeing some of those old 78 and even Frehley's Comet songs done well. And I thought it was great. So I did get to see Ace Frehley. I never got to see Kiss, but that's fine at this point. So that was kind of what happened with that. Oh, the music's playing here. Let me just pause this for a second. So that was kind of what happened with that. Oh, the music's playing here. Let me just pause this. So anyways, I'm back. Yeah, it was playing the outro music because I guess one of my previous episodes must have been way shorter than usual because sometimes they're 2 hours or an hour and a half or whatever. Usually with an interview with another with an artist or something. So anyway, so this whole Kiss thing. Oh, what was I saying? So I went to see Ace Frehley live, and I thought that was great. And I used to watch Three Sides of a Coin podcast, and I got kind of irritated after a while with some of their stuff. So I started watching Ralph Vieira, Dr. Fuck as he's known. I love his work, like his stuff with his bands and stuff, and his podcasts and his videos directly because of my newfound love for Kiss the past 12 years or whatever. So yeah, that's basically what happened with me and Kiss and Ace Frehley. And the funny thing, so I did Gene Simmons. Back to that story, I did Gene Simmons for Halloween one year, and I went to this this party with it. It was a hit. It was great. It looked really good. It was the Dress to Kill Gene Simmons costume. I went to Goodwill and got like this old leisure suit. It was very much in the style that 70s Kiss. And then I did the makeup. My sister did the makeup. It looked fucking phenomenal. And the blood, it was great. Okay, I have pictures. And I tried to do Ace Frehley in, was it 2014 or 15? And it was a failure because I was allergic to the silver makeup, unfortunately, and we had to stop in the middle of it. But I do have a picture of my sister again, funnily enough, applying the makeup, and it looked great. It was looking fucking phenomenal, but of course we had to stop because I was getting some blisters on my face, unfortunately. Thankfully, like black and white makeup I can still do because I did sort of a half-ass King Diamond last year for Halloween, but like I could do corpse paint, but that silver paint, oh my god, it is bad for my skin. So unfortunately I can't do that, but we tried. We did our best to do that makeup. But I'm thankful that there are things my skin can tolerate. This is just a mental note. That I can tolerate because I do want to do like stuff in the future with makeup and stuff. But like, I can do black makeup and white makeup, but that silver stuff, man, it was bad. It was itching. I guess I could have taken antihistamines, but we tried. I was almost gonna buy the official Kiss Ace Frehley boots. At that time, they weren't that expensive, especially for the wage I was making. But I never got around to that. I think I had some kind of silver. Did I have silver boots? I can't even remember. I had like the cheaper ones that went over your boot. Like they were covers. They weren't the actual boots. So yeah, that was kind of cool trying to do that, but unfortunately it didn't work, and it was kind of a lost opportunity. But I still have that picture looks pretty awesome. Even with me trying to do that and failing, it's the picture in the mirror of doing the Ace Frehley costume. So yeah, I was into Ace Frehley. As far as guitar playing, the thing is he's influenced so many people. You could read all the way back to like the 80s through the 90s, the grunge guys, Tom Morello, or the guys from Pearl Jam or whoever. Yeah, I bought Kiss Alive at 10, and then I was so into like or even like Trent Reznor or something. A lot of the 90s guys. Another guy that they liked is Ted Nugent, regardless of the sort of revisionist history about him. And I know he's problematic for various reasons, quote unquote, but it's still, Ted Nugent was a huge influence on those guys, regardless of what happened later or what people think about him now. But nevertheless, Kiss was a huge influence on people, and that's what happened, with the Kiss thing, including me. obviously. Like I was very influenced by that. And The Elder kind of gave me a weird like conceptual ideas that I thought were kind of different than what I was doing before. So I kind of got into that a little bit more after a while. So that was kind of what I kind of got into, later on, and I kind of wrote some stuff because of that. So yeah, Kiss were a huge thing. As far as the thing about Kiss is that I think overall that people don't understand about Kiss is that they don't understand what the point of Kiss were, and they think, oh, it's just a bunch of makeup and explosions. And really, what they were about were mixing different things together that weren't really at the time like part of the same scene. And that's really where the disconnect comes, because I think what they were trying to do, and I've actually talked about this in some videos and stuff, is they were doing a mixture of a band like the New York Dolls, right? They even looked like the New York Dolls early on, if you watch or if you look at some pictures of Kiss. Bands like, Black Sabbath, Alice Cooper, Led Zeppelin, bands like that. They were trying to mix all those elements together into this kind of thing. And all the songs are about sex early on, at least. They got God of Thunder was even that is kind of about sex, even though it's a little bit more mythological and stuff. And as a result of Bob Ezrin and kind of Paul Stanley working together on that song, and then Gene Simmons singing it, and obviously Bob Ezrin telling them to slow down the song. I know this podcast is kind of going a little bit into like the fast kind of a little bit of rattling territory, but nevertheless. So you had that. So I think the misunderstanding with Kiss and people bashing them is they don't understand what the mission goal of Kiss's music was. So they say, that they might independently say, oh, I love the New York Dolls or the Sex Pistols, or the people also bash the Sex Pistols, but oh, I love the New York Dolls, or I love Black Sabbath, or I love Deep Purple or Led Zeppelin or whoever. But they don't understand that Kiss were trying to bridge that type of like simplistic rock with kind of more harder rock. Like you listen to even the first album, 100,000 Years is more like a proto metal track, and then you have Strutter that's just like a Raspberries, like power pop meets like New York Dolls kind of song. And that's another influence on Paul Stanley too, the Raspberries and that kind of early power pop stuff. So you can think of it as disparate elements, but it really did kind of congeal into Kiss. So I get defensive when people bash Kiss because of that. They don't understand that what they were trying to do. Now, if you understand what they were trying to do with their music, then you kind of get where they're coming from with that stuff. So that's kind of what I have to say about that. What's going on with this? Let's move that over. Okay. I'm just still having trouble because this podcast is going a little longer than my last one, so I have to move over some files for my outro stuff again. So it's kind of a live moment for me there. I could have probably worked on a little bit more as far as that goes, but nevertheless, I didn't have this plotted out or anything. Some previous episodes I kind of did, but I really took a while with this. I wanted to do a little bit something a little bit more involved with this Ace Frehley tribute, because I didn't want to just do another video that was like 10 minutes or whatever. So I really wanted to go into this history. So yeah, that's kind of what I think about Kiss. One of my favorite bands, definitely. I listen to Alive 2 probably the most. I used to go to the gym and just listen to that. My main gym picks were kind of Emperor's Anthem, Anthems to the Welcome to Dusk, and Kiss Alive 2. Probably I've listened to those at the gym, like on the treadmill and stuff, more than anything. It's becoming a little bit different now. Like I've been listening to like a lot more stuff on the treadmill, which I have at home, which I'm trying to get back into, because obviously, as my previous statement I said, or did I say that in a video? I can't remember. I do so many videos and podcasts and stuff. I said I'm not exactly the most svelte person right now, but that is what I'm doing as far as like listening to more stuff. But I used to go to the gym and listen to Kiss Alive too, and I used to be at home listening to a lot of The Elder, because The Elder is just, to me, an underrated album. regardless of what they say now, what the band says, or what anybody says about it, I think it's underrated. It was a missed opportunity in many ways too. Like I think it could have been a way better album itself, but I think it could have. I think they did what they did, and at the time they believed in it. I think it's revisionist history to say the Kiss did The Elder and thought, oh yeah, this is going to be a failure and going to be a bomb and it sucks. And I think at the time they were sniffing their own gas, you know. they were into it, and Bob Ezrin was into it. They got Lou Reed to help out a little bit on some lyrics, and you know, the one thing about The Elder is that Ace is kind of checked out of it because I don't know, he wasn't really too involved with it other than like Dark Light and Escape from the Island. But at the same time, I think they do exist. Allegedly, there exists a bunch of unreleased solos that he did for the Elder that would be a great tribute to Ace Frehley. Hint of them doing a revamped Elder with Ace's solos intact. Well, that would be amazing. I would love to hear that. All his solos intact on the Elder. Because you watch there's only a couple of live performances because they didn't tour for the Elder. There's only a couple of live performances that exist of Ace and the band playing Elder material. And one of them is for this old show called Fridays that was on TV. They did The Oath, and Ace adds some solos to that, and it sounds amazing. To me, it was awesome. That was awesome. One of the best songs, actually one of the best metal songs of Kiss, and I think it inspired people. Another thing that was inspired by The Elder is Quorthon of Bathory. I think he really got a lot from that album because he was obsessed with Kiss. He even called himself Ace. And I think he got some of his like Viking metal, and along with Manowar, of course. And there's no doubt about that. I could do a whole episode about that sometime. If people want me to do that, I might do an episode. That's actually a really good idea for an episode. All the stuff that Quorthon used to say that he wasn't inspired by, but he was, or you know, like the Manowar thing. Like there was definite Manowar influence. So he was definitely influenced by some of those songs. Like you can hear it in Under the Rose and songs like that. I think he definitely was. Some of the lyrics do seem a little familiar too. So, I mean, more so with Manowar and stuff, but like the Viking stuff that Quorthon did, I think was directly influenced by music from the Elder. That's just my hypothesis or whatever, or theory, if you will. So I think that's probably the case. So I don't really have much more to say about Ace Frehley. Like, I will say that he did live a pretty fast lifestyle in the 70s and 80s and, you know, beyond to some extent. I heard that he was really into gambling. One of the funnier stories that I heard about him was actually him with his gambling, of all things. Like he had like a semi truck on his lawn, like that he won in a card game one time. That was really funny, actually. I thought that was hilarious. And one of the quips that I heard about him is that during the reunion tour, he was such a weirdo. Like he was such an eccentric guy that he had like these Macintosh computers in his hotel room, like playing clips of him, like looping clips of him playing guitar or something. Like there's these weird, like all these open pizza boxes all over the place. Like there's these little like things that you hear about him, like his legendary rock star excess. You know, watch the Tom Snyder interview with Kiss. Just brilliant, hilarious stuff that Ace did and Ace said in interviews and stuff. He was a funny guy. It was really cool. There are some people that did come out and say like he was kind of he kind of did some bad stuff too, like with regards to like business stuff, and just had some really bad habits in regards to some of his personal dealings and stuff. And you know, that probably is true. Probably his alcoholism and, you know, drug addiction and gambling addiction, which is really strange to think about. But like I said before, I think Kiss were very much in the hole financially before the reunion, and that's part of the reason why they did it. And it wasn't only Paul. There was Paul and Gene that had these bad business deals which were like some coal mines or something. It was really weird. You read Kiss and Sell and you find out about this. It's a really good book, Kiss and Sell. But Peter and Ace were kind of bankrupt, as far as I know, by that time. They were really bad with their money and stuff. So the Kiss reunion was necessary for them to, see any kind of positive net income, basically. So I think similar. This is my opinion about the Misfits reunion. This kind of piggybacks off of that. I think those guys probably had some business stuff that was not going very well either. So I don't know. I don't know if it was just Jerry only and Doyle or whatever. Maybe Glenn Danzig. I don't know. He seemed to be better with. I think Glenn Danzig was probably pretty good with his money, honestly. But they definitely make some money from that. It was about money. So I think that's about all. I will conclude this podcast and check out the next episode. I'm definitely doing more regular episodes now, and you'll probably hear some more interviews here soon too. So
biggest fucking just like, so you're basically telling me you're on your food. What do you mean you used to this? Used to means you got out of it. You got out of it. You weren't truly in it. Because again, dude, I don't want to hear any bullshit. I liked it as a kid, and I know now. Put it to you this way: when you were 16 years old, did you like pussy? Were you thinking about fucking? Now that you're 45 years old, you got a hot piece of ass in front of you. You're like, used to like that, not in that anymore. No, because you were truly into it. So you're still in it. You hit it. What do you mean used to? You were never truly in it. Dude, if you used to like Deicide in 1992, or whatever the fuck it was, and you don't now, poser. Fucking poser. Because again, you don't stop liking pizza, you don't stop liking pussy, you don't stop jerking off. What are you talking about? Used to. Used to? No, you've always been a fucking goddamn poser. That's what it is. I mean, you literally, when you come up and tell me that, that is fucking, you just translated that, I'm a fucking poser, punch me right in the face, dog. You may as well just say that, because that's exactly what you're fucking telling me. It's just in code terms. Biggest fucking just like...
Yeah, shit sound hot.